Hey there, guys. So it's Devin or Magewright, whichever you want to call me. So today, this is kind of a two-part video, and obviously by the Discord, you can see I have finally made a new Discord. It's not super elaborate or anything like that. It's mostly just when I'm streaming, when there's videos, some talking stuff, but it's a Pathfinder stuff we can talk about as well. But the stuff that's kind of useful, and there's not like a ton of it in here, but this is a lot of the stuff that I've used over the years to kind of learn and do stuff that's on the Discord. And I'm putting more in it, and then obviously, if people have more recommendations, we'll toss it in there. Like, I mean, some of it's really basic with the SRD, but I know people, like, I've met people who just don't know this exists. So, um, we have cool stuff like that in there, and, stuff you can use for, like, music and stuff on Discord. Some other, people who do, like, material, like, on just storytelling and all that stuff, like, in Pathfinder and other games and all of that. I only have two people in there. Though. I haven't watched a lot of content in a while, um, but I am like, if you guys have suggestions or whatever, let me know. Drop it in the Discord. We can look at it and add it. That'd be sick. And then just some stuff for like where you can play games or like run your games on. I'm currently using Roll20. I find it's pretty simple and easy to use, but I do find that like it has stability issues very often. So that part kind of sucks. And then there's some other stuff in here. But, well, I mean, if you guys want to look at it, you can feel free to look at it. That's totally cool. That's just kind of the quick part of this part of this video. The other real part of the video here is house rules. So we're gonna talk about some house rules today that I personally use. I just think that these make the game a bit easier and more fun for people, and they kind of smooth some stuff out. I mean, you don't have to use them obviously. They're house rules, but I generally find that a lot of them make sense, or at least I think the first two do. The third one you can debate, but I still think it adds a lot of fun to the game and fixes a lot of issues with things. But we'll start off with the first ones. So my first one I'm going to talk about is confirming fumble. So this is something that's always bothered me with Pathfinder in 3.5. 5% of the time, your character can just fail something, like in an epic way. It's not like they just miss it. Like it's a 5% of the time my level 20 fighter can throw his sword and lose it kind of thing. Like it doesn't make sense. That's not realistic at all. For every 5% of my swings, especially later on in the game when you're taking like 5 swings. So I think this is a really really dumb rule. And this is why I've always found it much better to confirm your fumbles, because you have to confirm your criticals too, right? So when I confirm my criticals, I get my critical, and then I also have to beat that man's AC again, or person's AC again. So then I get to crit. So why isn't it the same with a critical fumble? So generally when my players critical fumble, or sorry, when they roll a 1, I get them to roll again. If they miss the AC again, then it's a critical fumble, and then we have some fun times. Well, I have fun times, I should say. Sometimes it's a good meme though. And that's the same thing with the enemies. And I think that this just makes it makes it more realistic and more fun. It already sucks to roll a 1 because you know that you're going to automatically fail. It's going to be a miss. But if it's always a fumble, it just sucks. And honestly, I find that it really bogs down the game, because then you have to break out a table, or you're going to have to think about it. I think it's easier to just roll it. Like, I end up with way less fumbles, but I still get them fairly often, honestly. But this cuts them down significantly. So all of a sudden, your epic martial character isn't failing, at 1 out of every 20 swings. So, well, not like epic failing anyway. So I think this is a really good system. I highly encourage people to adapt to this, but you don't have to if you guys like to do it the way you do. But this is just something that I do, and I think it's a really cool house rule. This one's really minor. I'll be completely honest. This one's just kind of about adding con mod to level for when you heal from rest. I think healing in Pathfinder, if you don't have a cleric or something, is really rough. You kind of have to use a wand or something to get by. Like, you can do it, but it takes a long time to heal back. This helps alleviate that issue a little bit. So I'm talking level plus con mod every time you sleep, because it's supposed to be level, but that seems ridiculous to me. So I mean, that just kind of equals it out. So I mean, if you're a fighter at even at level 1 or whatever, your average fighter is going to need, they're going to have 12 or 13 hit points, right? So it's 12 or 15 days to rest up, which I mean, it's kind of realistic, but I think that there should. I don't think it hurts to have this little bonus in the kit or whatever. Really, I mean, healing's already really slow. I think con mod to level is just a nice thing to add to the players. Most of mine are always thankful for it. It's never really been like this big, like, oh dear God, this is breaking the game situation. Because realistically, even later in the game, like, even at level 20, you're gonna be looking at maybe 25 hit points or whatever, like per arrest or whatever. But at that point in the game, players are generally like 150 to like 250 hit points, so like that's not really a lot. And I think it just, and I mean, it doesn't really add, like, it's just a really good early game mechanic, I think, anyway. All right, so my third one, and this is my final one that I really play with or whatever, but this is going to be kind of a weird one. And I'm gonna kind of go over why I like this. I like to give people 2 extra skill points a level. Now, I know some people might think that's kind of weird, but here's my logic on it. I think that this game is incredibly boring on characters with only 2 skill points per level. If you are not in combat, your class is essentially pointless. It almost feels like sometimes, which really sucks. Like, you can roleplay, and that's totally fine, but I think even though the extra skill points adds to that. And I think it kind of makes sense. Like, yes, you're gonna end up with rogues and stuff later on in the game who are getting they're gonna get like 10 skill points level. It doesn't really matter, man. It really doesn't matter. I don't think it's a huge problem. What's the worst case scenario? Your player has 2 more skill points on a rogue. It's not a big deal. I mean, the rogue is supposed to be the most skillful character in the game anyway. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't really break or hinder the game in any way, shape, or form for them to have 2 extra skill points. It's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. But on characters like clerics and fighters and war priests and things of that nature, like, I know lots of people who just don't want to play those classes because, like, you get 2 skill points and it just feels like your character doesn't know anything. It doesn't feel good. So I really like to add the 2 extra skill points in. Generally speaking, my players love it, and I've never had it be a balancing issue. And even with 2 extra skill points in the game, and I DM for 5 to 6 players, we still very often have skills that nobody, like a skill or 2 that nobody has. I really think that this helps elevate the game. It gives them more freedom to put points into things that they want to put points into, because realistically, like, there's certain skills that you just need to have. I mean, I think that Pathfinder's done a much better job than 3.5 of fixing that. But like, perception for what, like, is a skill that you're always going to take or whatever. For example, you're always going to save points into that. If you're a fighter, that's half your skill points gone. That sucks. And then, like, there's your physical ones and stuff like that. So, like, I just genuinely think that adding the extra skill points helps make the game more fun for the players, because it gives the characters a bit more time to shine, and it adds a lot of role-playing aspect to it. It lets you add in skill points to what that would make sense for your character, because there's a lot of times where, like, you'll go to make a character and, like, oh, I just don't have the skill points for this, guess I'm gonna be this, but I'm not really trained in it. Like, it's kind of awkward. Whereas, like, a fighter with 4 skill points, like, at 4 skill points, you can at least kind of get something kind of going on. I haven't found a situation where I've at all found that this is game breaking, and I've only really mostly just found that it's positive. I think that it just helps people build characters. So I would strongly recommend that you guys think about it and consider it, because I do think that this is a really nice bonus to the players when they're building characters. I know that it's not, like, in the rules and stuff, and it's a little weird, and if you're really nervous about it, like, maybe try it in a game that's a little bit more not as serious, or a shorter game, and see how you like it. I was a little bit iffy on it, but I tried it in Way of the Wicked or whatever was where I originally did this, and I just really liked it. Like, I did it the one time in that, and I really fell in love with this because it gave the players a lot more ability to make those characters and give them more skills and things like that. And I mean, the reason why that one does it is because the characters are evil and they don't necessarily can't always rely on each other, but I still find that even in my other campaigns where the characters are good guys and with each other, that a lot of the time skills aren't all covered. So I think that this just adds a lot of a lot of variety to the characters, and you can really build a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, it brings a lot of classes that are very mundane and very one-sided up a bit more. I mean, I know that you can do it with role playing and a bunch of other things like that, and that's awesome and that's great, and I think I still fully encourage that. I just feel like this enhances that even more and gives players who aren't quite as might be a more combat focused character a little bit more leeway in these social encounters or these skill based encounters or whatever, but not enough that they can dominate it. Like the rogue is still gonna beat these characters in all of these situations. So will the investigator. But these characters might be able to help out or do a little bit more and stay more engaged in the game. But like not at the point where they're overwhelming and they still shine in combat. I think that this works out a lot better. But that's pretty much it for my house rules. I think that's mostly all the ones I generally use. There's definitely other ones out there that are totally worth using, and if you guys have house rules you guys use, throw them in the comment section. I'm totally curious to hear it, and maybe I'll even try them at some point. But I think that's mostly it. And make sure to follow. If you want to have more content or know when I'm making stuff, the subscribe button's right there. Like the channel, that's super awesome. And I also just made that Discord if you want to have even more content or be able to talk to me a little bit easier. That's awesome. And I think that's all I got for today. I will see you guys later.